For the last several months, I've been replacing all of the radiant heat equipment in my equipment room. Replaced pumps, manifold, the heat source. Down here on this elevated platform, I had a 50-gallon hot water heater for the radiant heat system. That lasted for 18 years, and last year it wasn't very happy, so it was time to go. Over here is a 30-gallon insulated tank, and a 35, 40-gallon hot water heater sat here for domestic hot water. I now have two tankless heaters on this wall, and it took a while to organize the exhaust up through the ceiling so it would be between two rafters, and I had to modify some of this stainless pipe. The heater on the far side is now the domestic hot water, and it comes over here and connects to where the hot water heater did before. And this heater is the one for radiant heat. The red pump in the back is the circulation pump for the storage tank. It takes water out of the top of this insulated tank and pumps it through the tankless heater. The heated water is returned to the bottom of the tank. And the aquastat down here controls the temperature of the water. Water for heating the house comes off the top of the storage tank, goes through the floor, and returns to the bottom. The system is normally pressurized to 12 psi cold. The temperature gauge in the back shows what the temperature of the water is coming out of the storage tank, and this temperature gauge shows how hot the water is returning to the tank. The temperature gauge on top shows the temperature of the water going out to the floor, and the one on the bottom shows the return temperature of the fluid. My house is divided into 6 zones, 6 thermostats, and I used to have a pump for each zone. The pump on top now supplies fluid for all the zones, and it's a variable speed pump, and you can set it to be constant pressure or constant rate, or to adapt to what is needed. The 2 green pumps on the bottom were salvaged from the other system, and they are in series to double their head, and they are here just in case the top pump fails. The gray expansion tank compensates for the expanding and contracting fluid as it is heated and cools, and the gadget on top eliminates air from the system. I have 3 of those air vents in the system. The white wires are thermostat wires. They're going into the zone controller. When a thermostat calls for heat, the zone controller recognizes that and supplies 24-volt AC to the actuators. The actuators have a little micro switch built into them, and it tells the zone controller that it can start a pump. When I built the house, I used a lot of Vanguard PEX equipment and supplies, and I used to have a return manifold down here on the bottom, and it adjusted the flow rates for the whole system. A German company bought Vanguard and then killed it off, so there were no longer spare parts for that manifold. So I decided it was time to replace it as well. I now have 2 manifolds. The one on top has the flow meters, and the actual flow is adjusted down here on the bottom on the return manifold. And those little white pots down there on the bottom, those are wax motors. You apply 24-volt AC to that. They gradually heat up and expand and open the valve for the loop that they're on. When they are fully open, it closes a contact switch, which sends a signal back to the zone controller that it can start a pump. The terminal blocks across the top with 11 4-wire actuators, that's 44 connections, and the wires on these actuators are fairly short. So I wired them to the terminal blocks, and then the terminal block, the wires come back right here and go into the bottom of the zone controller. This is a switch box that I brought over from the old system. It allows me to turn tank circulator pump on and off. And the 34E pump is the variable speed pump that runs the whole system. The switches on the bottom allow me to individually select the two standby pumps to verify that they're working and to use them if the 34E quits. The white PVC pipe and the silicone tubing goes up to these universal adapters, which are part of the exhaust pipe. That function is to collect any condensate, primarily in cold winter months. I currently have that going into a plastic container down here on the elevated platform. That condensate is basically hydrochloric acid, so you don't want it running around. The yellow lines are gas going into the bottom of the tankless heaters. And all the valves on the bottom of the tankless heater allows you to isolate that heater from the system and circulate cleaning fluid through them on occasion to descale them. Especially if you have hard water or you don't have a water softener, you can plug up one of these heaters pretty quick. Back in the corner is the main valve for the water coming into the house and the water supply that goes out to my two shops. The valves on either side of these pumps are isolation valves, so that you can close those and take the pump out for service or replacement without having to drain up the whole system. The two valves in the back are used for filling and draining the system. And the two valves down here are part of that for filling and draining. In here is the ManaBlock, and the ManaBlock provides individual valves for the hot and cold water that goes to every faucet in the house. Ice maker, washing machine, toilets, everything can be turned off here. You no longer have to crawl around on your hands and knees to get to a little valve somewhere. It's very handy. In this little equipment room is a total of 70 valves that control radiant heat, water supply to the different faucets, tankless heater, gas supply to the tankless heater, compressed air that comes in here from the shop, circulating pumps, zone control valves, water softener. You do need to understand how this system works, and you need to pay attention to what you're doing when you come in here.